Welcome everybody to Expert Academy live streams. Thank you everyone who tuned in yesterday to hear about YouTube and discovery campaigns. For all of those who missed it, you can actually go back to the platform and watch all the videos of the last couple days. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to win in a mobile first world. My name is Svevel. I'm an account manager working for the Dutch market here at our Dublin office. And with me here today is Nicola. Welcome.
Hi, Svevel. Welcome.
Thanks. Can you maybe shortly introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Nick. I'm working here at Google as an app specialist, trying to make our advertisers the most out of our campaigns.
Cool, perfect. Thank you very much. Is there anything we need to know about you or about the apps business actually before we get started?
Absolutely. 2020 is a big year for the app business. The overall business worldwide will be hitting $188 billion. So I'm wondering who out there is not keen to jump on this train and make the most out of Google App Solutions.
All right, perfect. Sounds like a massive number. Actually, the reason why we're here today. So to everyone who's tuning in, please be aware that you can ask questions below the video, and those will be answered by our specialists who are here in the room as well today. And with that, I would actually say I'm giving the word to you, Nicola, to walk us through how to win in a mobile first world.
Absolutely. Today I'll be talking about what the opportunity in the coming months is for all the app business, specifically on how to make the most out of app campaigns with Google, as well as in a very specific time of the year, which is the upcoming Black Friday push. A lot of advertisers out there leverage this moment to basically make or break the year, and we want to give you now the opportunity to look into how Google App Solutions can help you make the most out of it. So without further ado, I think we can put up the slides and run you through the content.
Perfect.
Right, so starting from the basics, this is what we call the seasonal peak for most of the retail apps. What's coming up is a lot of content focused on the Black Friday, specifically more like around how during the weeks of November, as well as also like the following weeks of December, most advertisers will basically need to have good insights and a good plan to make the most out of this high spending time of the year. We'll give you a little bit of insights into the how Black Friday works from an app perspective, as well as what's the overall opportunity. We'll give you the full overview of why doing apps during this time and how our campaigns specifically for apps work during very short bursts. What's the plan regarding media, as well as how to best leverage time, and give you a couple of success stories from our successful retailers on how they've leveraged our solutions in the past. I think we can run through the content if you agree.
Yes, let's go.
Starting from Black Friday, this has become a very big phenomenon in the last 10 years. Coming from the US, of course, this has developed in Europe as well. It's become more and more beyond Europe, like a global phenomenon, but focusing more on the biggest markets in Europe, we can see that it's become $7.5 billion business in Germany, and even bigger in the United Kingdom, where more than $10 billion are transactioned during that week. Other markets, of course, like add up in terms of overall market opportunity, but we would ask you to consider all the overall opportunity across all European markets. The overall search interest for Black Friday deals has been increasing across all Europe. So we see plus 64% of interest in Black Friday deals in Germany last year, as well as plus 22% year over year increase of Black Friday deals in UK. This gives us a very good positive signal of how users get their most of their deals purchased either through any channel, either through apps or like search or anything that basically helps them connect with what they really want to buy, with a product that they have been seeking to buy for a long time. The interest is quite bold, also in terms of advertising with any channel, and how basically this generates incremental sales through this specific time of the year. If we look at all countries in Europe, we can see that sales go above the normal trend of the rest of the year, 2-3 times higher. In specific cases, for example, Spain, it goes up of 1,240%, which is quite a big number if you consider it. But for more established markets like Germany and UK, even though the number is small, the overall business volume is still relatively very high. So consider this when you think about how to and when to advertise with Google. Overall, users' behavior takes into consideration the purchase of certain products across throughout the year. However, during more coming closer to the Black Friday week, we see that more and more users actually consider and consolidate the purchase of the products they have been considering for the overall throughout the year. So those that we call deal seekers, specifically looking after specific products, or the ones that buy in the very last minute, make up like 1/3 of the overall user behaviors that we see basically differing across like the different seasons of purchasing certain products. But more importantly, and I think we should stop a little bit here because it's actually a very, very insightful chart. If we take the two biggest markets, the share of users that actually purchase products through app is specifically big in the early generations. So between 18 and 39 years old, we have a very big chunk of people that buy products on Black Friday through apps. If we consider how much of the overall volume this means in terms of absolute dollar number, we see that there is a very big opportunity for all advertisers to basically reach their specific audience during Black Friday through the app. So this is quite a key data point. Of course, later generations have a different approach to it. They still prefer going in store or doing a purchase through normal means like desktop or their laptops, or even exactly again like through the store, but they still consider app to be a point of a touch point to basically consider throughout the purchasing funnel. Smartphones do drive the main conversations when it's about considering or finalizing the purchase. As we can see here, deal seekers are the absolutely most engaged on app when they want to basically consider what to buy. I remember, for example, last year I was actually seeking more and more product deals through multiple shopping apps, and just trying to find what is the right price that I want to pay for a certain product, or the discount that I want to apply to a certain product. So all these very, I would call it opportunistic in a positive sense, users are the ones that are the most engaged during this week, and these are the ones that advertisers actually would like to go after to buy them, to target more and more often, either through normal campaigns or actually re-engage them on an ongoing basis. Does this make sense to you? What's your feeling around this?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of recognize my own shopping behavior to this as well.
Yeah. So I would actually proceed further because we'd have a couple of more graphs that actually give a more insightful idea on how the behavior change for app users. If we consider the overall end of the year from October 2015 until January 2016, this is historical data coming from third-party providers. If we consider the overall download base, and then we isolate the behaviors of downloads on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, as well as on Christmas, we can see that the spike in plus 35% and plus 20% is a big opportunity not to miss on for all those advertisers who do have an app and that can generate value and revenue through it. More important than this, I would say the red line here highlights the overall engagement post-download of all these users. The active users within the app definitely spike at the beginning of November, reaching like 10 times more engagement during specifically the Black Friday week. Then, of course, go down again to basically take some rest from their purchases, but then come back to the app across at the later stage, let's say more into end of December, as well as keeping us steady engagement in in January. Does this surprise you, or do you find yourself behaving pretty much like this with your shopping apps?
Yeah, it makes sense, I think. So you see the installs happening, and then actually people actively using the apps for a different reason, probably also to make purchases throughout these Black Friday and Christmas season. So yeah.
Absolutely. And consider here that, of course, even though the download happens once, so you need to keep in mind that the overall trend for download volume here is for an event that basically happens once. The comeback and the re-engagement of users within the app happens more and more often. So even though the download volume is quite telling for any app advertiser, the main engagement metric, so active users, varies more significantly throughout the year. And you can see here how if you have a shopping app, or if you have an app that basically can deliver value to the user specifically around those weeks, it's quite key to keep this in mind and under the radar as probably the biggest opportunity of the year to make the most out of. Last data point before we move into the plan. 2 in 5 mobile shoppers are downloading a new shopping retail app. So people are more and more considering to buy the products they need on a daily basis through apps, and 45% of time spent in shopping apps during Black Friday week. So that means that like half of the time that we spend in app on those weeks are actually in shopping apps. So our shopping intent increases. And again, if the users are there, if the customers are there with a high shopping intent, advertisers must be there too. If you don't have any more questions, I will definitely jump in the app strategy. So to basically help our advertisers make the most out of app campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from a couple of data point of how apps do against mobile web, we always see that conversion rates skyrocket as soon as advertisers move more users to their app, up to 3 times more. That means that for every dollar spent on app, you are likely to generate more conversions, significantly more conversions than what you would do if the same dollar was spent on your mobile web. That gives you a very good insight on how to optimize your spend across channels. Average order value of apps are slightly, if not in line, higher than desktop and mobile web. This was quite a surprising data for me the first time that I saw it, because I didn't realize how much I was involved with apps. I used to buy through desktop and mobile web, but then I've realized that apps are becoming more and more and more well done, seamless experience, very nice and easy checkout, that basically makes me more confident on where I put my money and how I share my personal data. But more importantly, and this is more the data point important for those advertisers that play in a very competitive space, the cart abandonment rate is extremely low for mobile apps. So users that use the shopping apps stick to it more often. Once downloaded and once you buy from them, it's very unlikely, or it's less likely compared to other channels, that user will actually abandon the cart and not make the purchase. It's actually much more likely to make a purchase and complete the checkout compared to any other channel, which basically gives a very competitive edge to those highly rated apps in the shopping ecosystem.
Really valuable users.
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually a data point that should move their attention away or together with other channels, but definitely invest more into those into the very well performing apps and how to basically push the user through the checkout process. How do app campaigns play in this ecosystem? App campaigns are basically based on a machine learning engine that works with user signals. These user signals come basically from everywhere, from all the Google ecosystem. So from the install data, from in-app events data, from Google Play, contextual signals. So like, for example, device ID, time of the day, location, search queries, or any other apps installed that they have on their device, as well as the intent itself. So what did they search? What did they saw? What they were trying to see or watch on Play Store and YouTube. This, of course, is taken on by the machine learning algorithm that basically works out what's the best KPI that advertisers have input into the campaign, and to try to find those users out there in the Google network. So the ones that probably they're already familiar with, GDN, Google Play, YouTube, and the overall search engine. So how can you make the most out of your app's lifecycle? We try to create like 2 simple buckets for this to simplify the perception of the overall complexity of the app ecosystem can come down to 2 simple steps on how to make the most out of your Black Friday or in general of your app business. One is the acquisition of users, and the second one is the re-engagement. It's worth noticing that most users who download apps actually forget that they have downloaded the app. Sounds funny, right? But the reality is people are busy, and what they want to access is a very easy and fast way to get things done, as well as to purchase their products. So how can you acquire users during this peak seasonality, and how can you keep users engaged, reacquire those users who maybe forgot that they have an app, or how can you use the existing user base that maybe is engaged or somewhat engaged to basically make them even more engaged? App campaigns offer 3 main type of campaigns. So UAC for installs, UAC for installs advanced, and UAC for action. The first 2 charge the advertiser on a CPI basis. The second one is more on an action basis. So you decide the action within the app that you want users to perform, and that user basically will be targeted, and machine learning will bid on an action basis. Starting from left and going to right, we can see that the volume of the different campaign types decreases the more you move on optimization that focuses more on the lower funnel event. Of course, this very much depends on what the advertiser wants to achieve and what the advertiser main goal is. So without going too much into the details, the major principle that here needs to be kept in mind is, what am I trying to achieve? If it's download volume, so if I'm a new advertiser, I've just launched the app, I want to create a download base for my users to be aware that there is an app and to start using and experiencing the value proposition of the app, then I will start with UAC installs or UAC installs advanced to basically understand how many of these users actually register or log in within the app. If I'm instead a very established player in the app industry and I have a very large download base, I have already a very high Insta penetration in a certain country, and I've actually developed a new feature within the app, or I want more users, more of my new users to acquire more of my, to generate, let's say, more in-app sales, I will move toward UAC for actions. Of course, this is much less scale compared to the first 2, but it guarantees more in-app activity. It's predominantly focused on one action per campaign, but of course advertisers can play around and create more campaigns depending, of course, on the goals that they want to achieve on every single campaign. We have also a few beta products that help customers make the most of the users they target, as well as the performance they see in-app. Max Conversions is an alpha product, optimizes for spending your budget in an allotted time for seasonal or holiday purchase, specifically for example, for Black Friday case, as well as feeds for app campaigns. Many retailers are very keen on this. It's a beta product, so open on a whitelisting basis, basically use your rich in-app content, let's say for example the e-commerce feeds, to deliver better performance, surfacing those specific products that the specific user would like to click on or would like to purchase. Does not impact YouTube inventory yet, but of course keep in mind that both of these are betas and alphas that we would like client to test on top of the overall always on strategy.
So if you're interested in testing either of those, it would be good to reach out to your Google representative then.
Absolutely. Once the interest is raised by the advertiser or any or the client, just reach out to your Google representative, or your app specialist, to basically whitelist you for any of these betas. We talked about re-engagement. Why is it relevant? As I shared with you, 75% of smartphone users have downloaded an app and forgot it was on their phone. Fun fact. I find that as quite a big fun fact. 37% of installs remain in use after 7 days. It's a very small number if you consider how much of the overall app business is driven by a cost per download. So this is why re-engagement plays a very big role in how you keep those users engaged. If I can share a data point here, the overall retention rate at 30 days for shopping apps in EMEA, even though it's one of the highest across all region, is still very low 6%. So on a 30-day basis, if I have downloaded, if 10, let's say if 100 users have downloaded my app, only 6 after 30 days keep coming back. So that's why re-engagement is important. There is a big gap of users who do have the app but are not interested anymore in getting back to it, or just forgot about it. Half, almost like a little bit more than half of existing customers spend more on in-app purchases than new ones. It means that if I retarget users with a specific ad and then make them come back to the app, they're much more likely to generate a higher ROAS than any new users that I will be acquiring from now on. So this should move a little bit the needle internally in many businesses that think that new customers are the most important metrics. This is actually a very good data point to move more resources toward re-engagement. So how to re-engage your app users through Black Friday? On Black Friday, 3 main products from Google, so app deep linking, dynamic remarketing, and app campaign for engagement. The first one is a solution that basically brings users back to the app if it has the app installed already at a specific point in the app, at a specific stage. The example is you've checked an app, a product on the app, you've seen that you're interested in this product. This campaign basically allows you to retarget those users in this use case and make them come back to the app at that specific product page or at the specific checkout stage to basically conclude that checkout process. Dynamic remarketing, that basically bring users who look at specific products back to a specific in-app landing pages based on feed with specific products basically from the MGDN or the AdMob inventory, as well as app campaign for engagement, what we call ACE internally. It's one campaign that basically allows you to build audiences based on in-app events, fully automated to remarket users across all Google networks, not necessarily GDN and AdMob, but pretty much across everything. These 3, even though they look similar, the main difference in the way that they operate is, first of all, how do you build audiences, and second of all, the goal that you're trying to achieve.
And all of them are trying to make the re-engagement really relevant, I see, right? So to try to get them to the specific products or pages in the app.
Exactly. So if you're still unclear on which one to use and for what goal, do reach out to your app specialist that will help you figure out the good app strategy as well as the right logic for every single product that you see listed here.
Mm-hmm.
Here we see, for example, the exact example of how to deep link your M-Search or M-Shopping campaigns with the overall goal of increasing your conversion rates. So, for example, on the left-hand side, you have users who have the app that basically search for Adventure Duck and they are exposed to a search ad, while on the right side you have a user who does not have the app, who has made the exact same search, but actually is not shown with anything related to the app. So in the first case, what deep links does is basically, as soon as the user clicks on the ad, it basically lands at a specific point in the app, and this, on a reporting perspective, is represented into your ads interface, which means that the overall conversion rate, web to app flow, is reported in ads, showing up higher conversion rates and of course higher amount of conversions. Does it make sense? Does it feel like you would benefit from this user experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have seen the examples myself where you Google for something and then notice you actually have the app installed, even though you might have forgotten about it, as you mentioned before. And especially if you're then brought to the exact page where you need to be in the app, that's really relevant at that point in time.
Exactly. And on the right side, we would have just a simple flow from the search ad result to your Google Play link, where you will be able to download the app separately in another environment. However, on the first use case, you will just be seamlessly be transported directly into the app, where you can keep on completing a certain in-app event or anything you were looking for. This is how it looks on let's say on a real life case scenario. You would have you would have the amount of conversions that come from the app slightly increased, of course, because these are imported from your in your ads interface. A conversion rates that is much higher compared to any other non-deep linked campaign, as well as the cost per conversion that would come down. So the overall efficiency of the campaign would actually improve. But what just happened is not that more users clicked on it, is that you're actually fully tracking the overall flow. What happened is that data have been carried over from web to app, not that more users engage, but you just capture those leaky conversions that before you were not able to see. And this is a solution that at the end of the month, as well as the end of the year, actually makes your result look much better, much stronger, as well as helps you have the clear, more defined picture of what's happening across web and app. How does this work? How do you deep link these campaigns? It's based on three main steps. The first one is using deep links, app links or universal links on your campaigns. The second one would be to set up conversion tracking in the Firebase SDK. So making sure that the web to app conversions work and show up and are tracked and show up in Firebase, as well as they're passed into ads, as well as then on a weekly basis, or letting machine learning basically do this to optimize for both web and app conversions. So your shopping or your MWeb specialist will be taking care of ensuring that more of the upper funnel users that engage when considering products are actually engaged very early on, as well as when these users click on that ad and jump into the app, are actually the existing campaigns optimized toward the lower funnel events of the app. So more purchase, completed checkout, or anything that basically helps generate revenue for the advertisers. Does it make sense so far? I know that this might come a little bit of a complex setup. More can be explained by your Google App Specialist, but I'm just making sure that you have a clear understanding of how this little complex setup work.
Yeah, good point. I think also to the people who are viewing right now, please submit your questions down below as well. They can be answered by a specialist during this session too.
Sounds good. This is a little bit of an example of how dynamic remarketing works. I'm sure that most of our advertisers that are already leveraging shopping and their overall website strategy are already familiar with this. So after seeing a product, after a user sees a product on a specific app, they start navigating the web. They are basically retargeted with part of the feed that they already have in place, and the user clicks on the ad and completes the purchase through the app, not necessarily through the M site. This basically allows also the user to use more the app for you to see more in-app activity, as well as for users in general to come back to the app more often, as we've seen before, because users are more sticky to the app compared to any other channel. And finally, app campaigns for engagement. As we saw before, it's for the more mature stage of advertisers who have an established download base. Once the install basically happened, most users forget that they have an app or do not engage anymore with it. So they need to be activated. But then after that, we as marketer to basically help advertisers to keep their users engaged, we basically have to create a loop of how to activate the user, how to help these users advocate for more and more users outside of the download base, as well as to make these users basically engage with the app for a valuable event, for a valuable action, and then to basically keep repeating this loop. This reflects into campaigns, into multiple audiences, into multiple optimization toward app events. But of course, it's something that you need to build in terms of logical steps. So you can build audiences on top of each other's, but you need to be aware of how different audiences impact each other's and what you want every single audience to do at the end of the day. We've seen a few. This is like a few examples that are shown how app campaigns for engagement work. For example, a few use cases that I can think of are users who installed the app but never opened, engaging potential shoppers that probably have never bought yet from your app, or driving purchases in app from users who have bought once or have never bought, or have bought a while time ago but haven't come back to the app in a long time. And this is how it looks in AdMob, Play, Search, and YouTube in this ecosystem. Does it make sense for you so far? How do you feel about these products?
It does make sense so far. Thank you for explaining all the different products. Seems like there's quite some different options to work for re-engagement, and they'll have the same in mind to make sure that actually those users that have installed the app actually make use of it, and you can profit from those low cart abandonment rates. So, yeah,
absolutely. It might be a little bit too much to take on at the moment. All these different products, the different tweaks and goals that you want to achieve with every single solution. So I would definitely recommend to either look at this presentation again or get in touch with your app specialist to get to know the overall solution suite for all Google App Solutions. So what's the plan? How are we going to tackle Black Friday? It's coming. It's not so far away. How are we going to do this?
You tell me.
We have, let's say, a few things to do, making sure that this comes down to, let's say, 4 main pillars. First and foremost, it comes down to how we bid for those users who really matter to us. Set higher bids than your regular campaigns and readjust bids accordingly. Go aggressive and then cut back into how you bid in those weeks, rather than being very cautious with your bid and trying to keep up at the very end of the Black Friday week. It's always much better to exaggerate or go a little more beyond your comfort zone in the very beginning and then cutting back afterwards, rather than playing the opposite game, which has resulted in successful campaigns in the past. Run burst campaigns. Why this? I know that this might come across as, oh, but we're only driving downloads. It's actually not part of the overall UAC strategy. You should be thinking of what you're optimizing for, not necessarily what you're bidding on. So campaigns needs to be created at least 4 days before the actual peak. Budgets to run uncapped, to have machine learning have enough room to breathe in the very first 7 days. Set your TCPI or TCPA at least 20-30% or even higher in the first let's say 5 to 7 days, or alternatively use max conversions beta for burst effect to basically allocate a certain budget and make sure that you generate the highest amount of downloads with that.
And then the 20 or 30% higher, is that compared to what you would regularly set as a target?
Exactly.
Right.
So we recommend to have that as a minimum threshold of how higher the advertisers should bid for that specific time frame. Okay. However, anywhere higher is of course better, but conscious also of the budget constraints that advertisers have and how they want to optimize and control budget over Black Friday. We always recommend to bid that at least 20-30% compared to their usual bid across throughout the year. Ad groups and feeds. So adoption of betas, utilize ad groups for your different creative themes. I'm sure many advertisers are preparing different creatives for Black Friday. I'm sure you know of the importance of creatives across your overall paid activity. Nothing less on UAC. Ad groups actually helps you leverage more creative assets per campaign and basically lets you target users with different assets based on, of course, the signals that machine learning receives. Use your Google Merchant Center to empower machine learning with your in-app feeds. This is something that I'm sure lots of advertisers in the shopping and retail ecosystem are already leveraging on web. Why not doing on apps too? And re-engage users. This is key, specifically for those advertisers who have a very big download base. In that week, re-engage your users to basically finish the checkout that they might have started 1 week before or 2 weeks before. Timing is key. Here's how the action plan against time plays out. Preparation starts in early November, with pretty much working on deep linking and search campaigns. It's a little bit of a labor-intensive job, specifically because it involves a lot of manual changes. So we'd highly recommend to start this as early as possible. However, throughout the upcoming weeks, so 18th of November as well as the week of 25th of November, your app campaigns, as well as whether you're running burst or non-burst, should basically be set up with full creative assets, ready to measure everything from download down to in-app action, and ready to start with, as we said, 20-30% bids higher than normal. Everything else can be basically adjusted up until 3-4 days before Black Friday starts. In those 2 weeks, what we want to do is to avoid touching the campaigns very often, because of course every change would impact on the campaign itself. As the main principle here, we try to recommend to basically start with your bids 20-30% higher than your usual bids, as well as with uncapped budgets, to make sure that campaigns have a wide range and a large room to breathe and to run to basically reach those users. Then you can always change bids as well as the budget accordingly as soon as you see results coming in. You can always do this throughout the week. However, keep in mind that every change that you make on the budget or on the bid side will impact campaign the next 3, 4, 5 days. So any specific question that you have, or any specific roadblock that you see that, for example, your clients might come up with?
Good point. And again, I think a good reminder to everyone who's tuning in right now to also please submit your questions down below if you have any at this point in stage. I think this is really clear. I like the overview of the different timings, and in order people to think about something like deep linking your campaigns early on, something that you need to have in place in order to make best use of the re-engagement campaigns later on in the month and close to Black Friday. Would you say that there's a difference in terms of preparation for Black Friday, for example, when you compare it to the Christmas period, maybe later on in the year? Would you say a similar approach is good there as well, or would you tune that a little bit?
What to keep in mind is always the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during Black Friday, we see that a lot of this interest comes from deals, specifically like around certain categories of products, while on Christmas, these categories of products slightly change. So what I would change is not necessarily, what I would advise is actually not necessarily on changing the main objective of the campaign, which remains the in-app purchase, or let's say in another scenario, the add to cart. So ensuring that more and more users add products to the cart. But what I would actually improve or change would be the creatives, or how I build my audiences into app campaigns for re-engagement. Main reason being, behaviors of users in Black Friday are not necessarily similar to Christmas. Even though the overall purchase volume increases across 2 periods, we might see that it's better to shift, for example, creative themes toward more Christmas themes under December time, to ensure that the theme basically recalls what advertisers want their users to buy. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. We wanted to also share with you a few case studies from successful campaigns run by a few of our advertisers. FC Burada had an incredible 40 times more shoppers and surges to the number one spot on iOS and Android during Black Friday through app campaigns. What's most stunning from this success study is that number that says 45 times growth in app user base during Black Friday. If I consider the overall year strategy in terms of new customer acquisition, and I consider that number, it tells me that they must have had such an easy time and such a tough time in acquiring those users just during Black Friday, but how that paid off in terms of contribution to the overall new customers base that they have built throughout the year, that is actually a very, very good winning metric just in 1 week. Number one spot on iOS and Android, up from 200th. It's quite a big jump, not necessarily because it comes from 200, but also because it makes me think of the organic volume and the organic downloads that they get out of being number one on both charts, both for iOS and Android. The organic uplift you get by having the high visibility of being number one, it's actually a very good word of mouth for all your users that yet don't have the app but actually keep on recommending as I've seen this new app, it's actually very good. I'll download it and I will try, and I'll pass my word to more and more users. And this is probably the biggest success stories in Turkish retailers against any other competitor that I've tried a similar strategy. Another case, Otto, a big German retailer who actually helped. We actually helped to implement deep links. They've had very good app experience as well as mobile web campaigns, the shopping campaigns that were already running. We have them integrate deep links, and so after full integration of deep links, web to app reporting, and conversion tracking, they basically saw more than 1/4 of overall revenue from app, which is quite a big number considering how young the app industry is. 86% of year-over-year sales growth on app compared to mWeb, which is almost double, and 2.3 times higher conversion rate with the mobile app. Again, this comes back to where, if I was an advertiser, where do I want to invest my money? Where users generate a higher stickiness, where they actually come back more and more often. And lastly, but not less important, Trendyol, big Turkish retailer again, with their main business objective of keeping their users engaged with a very high scale, as well as they wanted to increase the overall volume of installs that they had for their own app and to improve key performance metrics for their app campaigns through dynamic remarketing. They have seen 3 times growth in app traffic from Google, 140% increase in click-through rate, which is quite a significant number if you think about how many impressions are distributed to users and how many clicks and installs I get out of these impressions. 20% of growth in conversion rate, but more importantly, 70% increase in ROI, is numbers that if I was an advertiser with a shopping app, I would definitely consider to start using app campaigns.
Agree there, absolutely. No, it shows that the app traffic can be super valuable. You see it in numbers such as ROI, but also a click-through rate, or indeed what you can achieve in terms of positions in, for example, the app stores. All right. With that, thank you very much, Nicola, for running us through how to win on mobile today.
You're welcome.
Clear context, I think, on how to use app campaigns for both acquisition of users, but also how to re-engage with those same users. So thank you very much from that. Then, before we move on to the questions, I would like to note that we have a feedback box that's going to be popping up on the right-hand side of your screen. So please give your feedback to the session here. We can use that to make these sessions even better. And tomorrow we'll be back with growing your business with shopping ads. So please tune in for that session as well. And then now I would say let's head over to the questions. So please, if you have any questions, submit them down below and they'll be answered by our specialists. We will stay in the room even when the video is ended. And for now, let's then go into some of the questions we already have that we would like to dive into at the moment. So maybe, Nicola, to start with, one of the questions we got was related to brand safety, basically. So how can a brand ensure their brand safety with UAC campaigns?
UAC is one of the Google products with the highest amount of brand safety controls and settings that you can directly control in the Google Ads UI. It's a very specific topic which relates to what the main concern of the advertiser is. So before going too much into the details, I would say reach out to your app specialist to find out what you would like basically to achieve by promoting through apps, but also what you would like to avoid in terms of protecting your brand through our app ads. And of course, more tailored approach will be built given like the brand safety settings.
Right, that's clear. I think that's also maybe a good answer to the second question, which is about can we control placements with UAC. I think also for that it's good for people to reach out to their Google representative to talk more about that. Right. Another question we got is how should I think about setting a CPI, so cost per install for app campaigns? Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, of course the install costs as much as you would like to pay for it. However, the factors to keep in mind are of course what kind of users you would like to get. Mm-hmm. What is the value of users you would like to get? How much your iOS users are doing compared to your Android users under different metrics? What countries are you promoting your apps in? So all these factors basically play in when considering a cost per download. The overall principles that we keep in mind when setting up app campaigns is to keep your cost per download competitive against market benchmarks, which either your app specialist can share with you or you can find out in third-party providers' websites. What we advise on is to always bid a little bit more on iOS compared to Android. Why? Because iOS users historically have a much better conversion and engagement and value attached to them compared to Android users. So overbid on Androids compared to on iOS compared to Android to balance out the two platforms, as well as always keep in mind that it's the first time that the user downloads the app. So even though it might cost a little bit more to pay for a download, keep in mind that that user from now on will have that app downloaded on their phone, through which you can basically reach out to it again and over and over and over again. So it's a few factors to keep in mind, but I would definitely say consider your main objective.
Yeah, good point. All right, consider your main objective in order to establish what is the CPI you want to bid on. Maybe coming back to something you mentioned, so you already talked a little bit about the difference between iOS and Android campaigns. So one of the questions here is also, are there any differences between iOS and Android campaigns? You already talked about it a little bit. Is there anything more you can say about that?
App campaigns wise, the setup is very much similar. In terms of creatives, in terms of measurement, everything looks very much similar in app campaigns. However, as we just mentioned, the bids might be slightly different. The budget that you want to set on iOS compared to Android might be different as a consequence of the cost per download price that you will pay. As per Google, we of course own the Android inventory, so for us it's much easier to have a very high reach in across all the Google networks. However, with with the new iOS search measurement beta, we are actually able to unlock more of the iOS inventory. It's not a problem to run at basically same volumes. However, of course, iOS being a little bit more competitive, more apps and more valuable users, so the bidding is more competitive on the iOS platform compared to Android. but what's behind is more valuable users. So definitely don't miss out on the opportunity of running iOS campaigns.
Right, some good advice there. Yeah. Another question we got was related to Android as well. So as Android is a Google product, can we expect it to perform better there, assuming you have more signals? Is that something which is actually the case, or?
I would say most of it depends on the signals that you feed in the app campaign.
Yeah.
If you are working already with a third-party measurement provider, you can actually feed this data back into ads. So if you're tracking, for example, in-app purchase, you can set this up at campaign level as main conversion event to optimize for, both for iOS and Android. So campaigns will have the same goal, something that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have any measurement provider, whether Google or not Google, and you will be able to run only through Google Play codeless tracking. So this is one thing. The other thing is that Android, as we said, might have a slightly higher success rate than iOS. However, the big important factor here is that most valuable users, or like iOS users, have historically a slightly higher value compared to Android users. So as we provide solutions, we actually want to make sure that advertisers achieve and reach those users for the best value of their campaigns.
Clear. Another question we got here was around policy restrictions, actually. So are there any major policy restrictions when it comes to using app campaigns? So are there limitations for certain industries similar to other Google Ads products?
It's pretty much standard to what it is already on the other Google Ads product. So if you're familiar already with with the ads policy on other Google Ads product, then the same applies to UAC.
All right, perfect, all clear. So to everyone who's dialing in right now, please make use of the feedback box as well to give us feedback on this session. And please stick around. If you have any more questions, you can submit them down below and we'll answer them right there as well. So Nicola, is there any last points you want to share with the audience today?
Curiosity, what are you going to buy on Black Friday?
A pair of new shoes, for sure.
Sounds good. I'm not sure about what yet, but I will let you know.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for today. Thank you all for tuning in and hope to see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.